The Boston Bruins conducted their big sell-off last season, and now that they're back in playoff contention, it's time to start adding some pieces that can help them now and in the future.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, the daily show where we discuss all things Spoked Beat. Thank you so much for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I am your host, Ian McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I have been covering this team and the NHL for various outlets for nearly 20 years. On today's episode, we're going to expand our discussion on trade targets, picking out 5 specific players that can help the Bruins this season and moving forward. We will also update the Atlantic Division power rankings and preview tonight's game against the Utah Mammoth. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. All right, let's jump right into it, folks. The Bruins last season were big sellers on the trade market. They got rid of Brad Marchand, who now has 19 goals for the Florida Panthers, by the way. Brandon Carlo, Charlie Coyle, Trent Frederick, Justin Brazeau, and they were able to bring in a bunch of pieces that are serving them quite well now. When you look at Casey Mittelstadt and how he has started to come into his own on the second line. You have Fraser Minten locking down the third line center role. Marat Husnudinov played very well the other night in Minnesota. You have a first-round pick this season and next, depending on how far down the Maple Leafs fall in the standings, which we don't hate to see. And some of your own homegrown prospects from the past few years that are continuing to season in the AHL in the likes of Fabian Lysell, Matt Poitras. So they're in a good position right now to not have to continue to sell. I see a lot of people commenting on the YouTube or on social media that the Bruins should be trading Pavel Zacha, Mittelstadt, anybody they can in order to continue to bottom out, get some high draft picks, get some prospects or picks. I didn't even mention the fact that they have James Higgins in the pipeline as well. For me right now, the Bruins are in a position to add. And that's because they're right in the thick of the Eastern Conference playoff race. So we'll take a look at that more in detail when we update the Atlantic Division power rankings. The Bruins are currently in a playoff spot, and they have a big opportunity beginning tonight to pick up some points during this 5-game homestand before the break. There are some needs that this team has, though. And when we look at those needs, I got a great question via Instagram yesterday from Ryan Ribble, who asked, who are the top 5 players the Bruins could or should go after? And let's just get into it and answer that question right now. I think the most obvious and immediate blue line fix would be Rasmus Andersson from the Calgary Flames. Andersson is a guy who is widely reported to be available as the Calgary Flames struggle this season. He would directly address one of the Bruins' most glaring needs, which is a top 4 right shot defenseman who can run a power play. There's high interest from contenders. He's a pending unrestricted free agent, but he would be a genuine top 4 upgrade and a proven point producer on an expiring contract, making him a potential rental or a key re-signing target. And his acquisition would signal the Bruins are pushing for a playoff spot very seriously. And of course, he has chemistry with Nikita Zadorov and Elias Lindholm, based on their days playing together in Calgary. Now, another big target would be Matias Maccelli from the Toronto Maple Leafs. He is currently struggling in Toronto and has been a healthy scratch often. Insiders specifically named the Bruins, and specifically Elliot Friedman, as a team that had prior interest and could circle back, as Toronto may be looking to move him up to free up cap space or a roster spot. He would address the need for top 9 playmaking and scoring. Given his current struggles in Toronto, his trade cost is likely lower than it would have been this past offseason, making the deal perhaps a bit more feasible for the Bruins. He's a guy that's had 50-plus points in the past and could make a real difference for the Boston Bruins. As you know, we all know scoring hasn't been the biggest problem for this team, but when you look at the Bruins, you look at their lineup when they're healthy and you don't see many holes there. But that doesn't mean there isn't room for upgrades, right? Elias Lindholm playing on the top line. On many other teams, he wouldn't be a number 1 center. Same thing with, Pavel Zacha, Fraser Minten. These aren't guys who are perhaps being optimized or wouldn't be in those positions on other teams, but it's just the state of the Bruins depth chart at the moment that they are plugged in there and playing relatively well. But there's always room for improvement, for being able to upgrade. The other big target for me, and this is a huge swing, a team that just made a change at GM yesterday, the Buffalo Sabres, letting go of Kevin Adams, replacing him with Jarmo Kekalainen. They have a huge potential trade target in Alex Tuch. He's a proven top 6 scorer. If you look at the biggest needs for the Bruins, it's probably right-hand shot defenseman and then someone to play the right side behind David Pastrnak up front. Victor Arvidsson playing well there, but he's getting up there. He's also an unrestricted free agent. Could be a sell target later on, especially if they're able to add at that position. And Tuch would fill a more long-term spot there. Consistently produced 60-point seasons, a recent 36-goal season. He would provide stability when it comes to secondary offense. He's a right shot winger, which also adds balance to the top 6 forward group. You put him with Mittelstadt, Zacha. That's a really dynamic second line possibility and a big upgrade over Arvidsson. He is one of Buffalo's most important players, likely under contract for 1 more year after this one. Actually, no, he is. Let me take a look at Buffalo's cap situation. And speaking of Buffalo, they have a pretty good RFA target in Josh Doan there as well, who's played pretty well as of late. But when it comes to Alex Tuch, he is a free agent after this season, making $4.75 million and going to be due a pretty significant raise, but he's worth it because of the production that he has been able to maintain steadily over his time with the Buffalo Sabres, even a team that doesn't have much support around him. The cost would be pretty high, probably at least a first-round pick and a top prospect. The Bruins do have 2 first-round picks this year, 2 next year. Maybe they float their own because you might want to hold on to Toronto since it's likely to be lower. The risk there is that it is top 5 protected. So if you trade your own and Toronto ends up in the bottom 5, then you don't have a first-round pick at all. So maybe you look at next year's pick or next year's Florida pick, plus maybe a Matt Poitras or a Fabian Lysell. It would be a huge established boost on the right side, but more expensive than the Toronto option. So those are 3 top targets for me. I would also take a look, as I mentioned yesterday, at David Jiricek in Minnesota, who's been bumped down the depth chart following the acquisition of Quinn Hughes. And when everybody's healthy, he's at best their 7th defenseman, perhaps even 8th. This would be a more of a long-term project. The Wild still likely view him as a foundational piece and insurance in case Quinn Hughes does not sign long-term. They made a pretty big bid for him last year, so perhaps he's not as available. You could also look at Nashville, who's really struggling, and a guy like Nick Perbix, right shot defenseman, affordable, under contract for a decent term and valuation, steady, reliable, two-way game, and perfect for a second or third line pairing role. Wouldn't be able to power play quarterback like Andersson would, but excellent value as a minute eater behind Charlie McAvoy. Finally, I would look at Pavel Mintyukov down in Anaheim. He is looking to be traded. Reports indicate he's frustrated with his ice time, being healthy scratched. He is a left shot defenseman, which is not exactly what they need, seeing as they already have Nikita Zadorov, Hampus Lindholm, Mason Lohrei on the left side. But you can never have too many options over there. And while Andersson would be the priority on the right side, as would Jiricek, he would bolster the overall defensive youth and skill for the long term and would fit into the retooling target where the Bruins are getting younger, but still improving in terms of their long-term prospects. So those are a handful of guys that I would target right now for the Boston Bruins who are in the mix for a playoff spot. I'm not looking to sell this year. We're looking to get into the playoffs, see what happens, because it's wide open in the East, as we'll see here in a moment. And when you have that core of Jeremy Swayman, Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak, Morgan Geekie, all healthy and playing at high levels, despite Swayman's game the other night, you owe it to them to do everything you can to get into the playoffs and give them a shot at a Stanley Cup, even though they're probably not among the contenders this year. Where do they fit in the mix in the Atlantic Division? Well, we'll update that here as the podcast continues. NFL Sundays move very fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. Keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. Of course, it's not just NFL action you can get in on. NHL is an option as well. The Bruins Mammoth game tonight, for example, the over-under is set at 6.5. If you want to be right in the middle of the action, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you so much again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network, all thanks to you. You are already living your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Boston Bruins with no interruptions, members-only Discord access where we can chat all things Spoke Bee, and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonbruins.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. So right now, the Boston Bruins, when we look at the Atlantic Division, sit 4th in total points. Actually, tied for 2nd, but 4th because of regulation wins and point percentage. The Bruins are fourth there as well. The Tampa Bay Lightning and the Detroit Red Wings are tied atop the division with 39 points apiece, although they're separated by a pretty big gap in terms of goal differential. The Lightning are plus 18. The Red Wings are minus 5. The Canadiens have 38 points through 32 games, tied with our Bruins, who are 19-14, 5 games above 500, 38 points through 33 games for a point percentage of .576. If you stack them up by point percentage, the Canadiens are actually in first right now. They're at .594, 38 points through 32 games. The Tampa Bay Lightning have 39 points in 33 games. It's a difference of .594 and .591, which is exactly where the Detroit Red Wings are as well. So like 0.3% difference between Montreal, Tampa, and Detroit right now. The Bruins are in fourth at .576. And notably, the Bruins are only one of 3 teams in the division with a positive goal differential. The Florida Panthers, who struggled out of the gate a little bit and are still playing without Alexander Barkov, Matias Maccelli, they have snuck up to the 5th spot right now, 17-13-2, with a point percentage of .563. And they're the other team with a positive goal differential at +2. The Toronto Maple Leafs, Ottawa Senators are 6th and 7th right now in the Atlantic, separated by the slimmest of margins, 1 point in the standings, and also 0.1%. The Maple Leafs are .532, and the Senators are at .531. And then finally, we have the Sabres, who I mentioned earlier, having fired general manager Kevin Adams, replacing him with Jarmo Kekalainen, who was already in the organization in a advisory role. They've actually won 3 games in a row and have raised their record to 14-14-4, 32 points in 32 games for an even 500 point percentage. No team in the Atlantic is below 500. In fact, no team in the conference is below 500 right now. If we're ranking the Bruins by way of point percentage, I would put them 4th, but I think I might give them the edge over Detroit because of their pretty poor goal differential, although Montreal's is even worse. They're at -8. If we're stacking up these teams by goal differential in the Atlantic, and said it many times before, hockey is a very simple game. You need to score more goals than the other team. The Bruins have scored 109. They've allowed 105 for a goal differential of +4, which is second best in the Atlantic Division right now. Well behind, I should say, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are +18. They've scored 106 goals, but allowed only 88, which is 13 fewer than the next tightest defensive team in the division, which would be the Florida Panthers. So they're definitely a team to keep an eye on, obviously, as the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. They will be getting Matias Maccelli back at some point. Not quite sure if Alexander Barkov will be coming back at some point because of his injury that he suffered during training camp, although I wouldn't write him off because we know how tough and determined he is. The one question mark perhaps is their goaltending, Sergei Bobrovsky with an .888 save percentage so far this season. But all this to say, the Bruins are right in the mix with the top teams in the Atlantic Division, although the margin for error is very low because you could easily go from where they are right now, 4th to 8th pretty quickly if the Sabres get on a bit of a roll, as they're only 6 points behind the Bruins with a game in hand. Now, the Bruins do have a 5-game homestand coming up beginning tonight, heading into the holiday break. They are 11-5 at home, the most wins in the division on home ice. And if they can take advantage of that and pick up, there's 10 points on the table. If they can pick up 7 of them, they will be in a very good spot moving forward. If you look at the conference as a whole, the Bruins are outside of the top 8 in terms of point percentage. The top 3, actually the top 5 right now, are all from the Metropolitan Division, which is something to keep an eye on because we know there's only 3 guaranteed playoff spots per division and then the 2 wildcard spots. And right now, the top 5 teams are all in the Metro, which would signal that there's only going to be 3 spots available for Atlantic Division teams. Carolina, Washington, the Islanders, the Flyers, and the Penguins. Top 5 in the East right now by way of point percentage, and they're all above 0 when it comes to goal differential. Flyers, Penguins, especially, very surprising. Same with the Islanders. They've had so many injuries so far this season, and they're the 3rd best team in the East. After them, you have Montreal, Tampa, Detroit, and then the Bruins in 9th right now, despite the fact technically they are in a wild card spot. Just goes to show you how tight things are. No teams in the East below 500, although there's some separation when it does come to goal differential. Columbus, for example, dead last at -16. And again, the Bruins will have a big opportunity to pick up some points on home ice beginning tonight against Utah. And that's a game we'll preview here as the podcast continues. Let's say you're running a small to medium-sized business and you realize you need to hire someone ASAP. How can you find amazing candidates fast? It's pretty easy. You just need to use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. When Indeed's sponsored job posts put yours at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. The pressure's on. Every day without the right person is a setback, and that's exactly where Indeed's sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Boston Bruins. Terms and conditions apply, but if you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. All right, our Bruins are looking to rebound from that pretty poor showing in Minnesota the other day, although they did have a fairly successful road trip, picking up 4 of a possible 6 points. Tonight, their opponent will be the Utah Mammoth, a team that is 16, 15, and 3. So that's 16 wins, 18 losses technically, but they do have the advantage of the loser point, setting them up to be over 500. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately for the Bruins, they are without one of their better young forwards in Logan Cooley. He had 23 points in 29 games before getting injured. He's out of the lineup, but they're still a team that can do some damage offensively with Nick Schmaltz, Clayton Keller, Dylan Guenther, JJ Peterka, even Lawson Krause, putting up some decent numbers so far this season up front. On the back end, they're getting contributions from Mikhail Sergachev, John Marino, Ian Cole, even Nate Schmidt. In goal, kind of a rough start for their goalies, despite a winning record for Karel Vejmelka. He's got 14-9-2 record, .893 save percentage. Backup Vitek Vanacek, 2-6-1 with an .878 save percentage. For the Bruins, Jeremy Swayman, 13-8-0, .908. Jonas Korpisalo, .888 save percentage with a record of 6-6. It'll be interesting to see if the Bruins go with Korpisalo after Swayman played on Sunday, or they allow Swayman the opportunity to bounce back after that rough outing by getting the start tonight. And if it were me, I'd go back to Swayman, You have 5 games coming up. Maybe you go 3-2 and give him the Swayman the most starts. Just seeing an update here. Looks like Connor Bedard has a separated shoulder per Kevin Weeks. So that might make an impact when it comes to the Olympics. Anyways, Michael DiPietro as well with an injury for the Providence Bruins. Anyways, let's get back to tonight's game. The Mammoth coming in with a 4-6 record in their past 10 games. They have won 2 in a row, though, once against Seattle, and then a comeback win over the Penguins this past weekend. Before that, they lost to Florida, the Kings, and the Flames. The Bruins are 6-4. They had won 4 in a row before that loss to Minnesota. The Bruins, when it comes to special teams, have an advantage over Utah on the power play. The Bruins now rank 5th with the man advantage. And again, full credit to Steve Spott for coming in and reinvigorating that unit for the Bruins, which was pretty bad last season. 25.5% success rate. Utah only 15.6% for a 27th rank in that one. Their penalty kill is pretty good, though, 83.9%, which is 7th. The Bruins rank 15th, but they've slipped there over the last little bit. I mentioned yesterday they're below 70% on the penalty kill since Thanksgiving. The Bruins can really take advantage in the face-off circle by getting possession early and keeping the puck. 51.6% success rate, which is 9th compared to 47.6 for Utah. They are 24th. Utah's offense is pretty good. 3.12 goals per game, 13th in the NHL. The Bruins are 8th at 3.24. Nobody saw that coming. Defensively, and despite the poor save percentages for their goalies, the Mammoth allowing fewer than 3 goals per game, 2.97, which ranks them 14th. The Bruins are allowing 3.18, which is 20th in the NHL. So the Bruins tighten up defensively, limit high danger opportunities for the Mammoth, stay out of the penalty box, don't overwork your penalty kill unit, which is kind of struggling these days, win the faceoffs, gain possession, get the pucks on net, because Vejmelka and Vanacek, whoever starts, they are both vulnerable in net. And this is a big opportunity for the Bruins to begin this homestand with a win. And, you know, they got Edmonton coming in on Thursday, then Vancouver, then Ottawa, then Montreal. This could be, I don't want to see the easiest one of the 5, but perhaps the lowest pressure one. It's not really a contender. It's not a former rival. It's not a division opponent. So this is a game the Bruins can and should win. Now, Utah is a pretty good possession team. They rank 3rd in terms of shot attempt differential. At 5-on-5, they rank 4th in shot differential. When it comes to scoring chance differential, they are still a top 12 team. And when it comes to high danger opportunities, Utah is also around 11th. So they get a lot of pucks towards the net. They're able to get pucks on net and generate some high danger opportunities. And their expected goals, 5-on-5, they rank, 17th in the NHL. Whereas the Bruins are, the Bruins are up to 13th when it comes to expected goal differential at 5-on-5. Am I doing that right? Actually, the Mammoth are 6th in that category, and the Bruins are 30th. That did not sound right the first time it came out. I think I was looking at shots. The Bruins are 30th in expected goals, 5-on-5. Mammoth up at 6th. So the Bruins defensively don't allow their power play to get rolling or get hot, and just get some pucks on net because their goaltenders are indeed leaky. It's a winnable game, but could be a bit of a trap one as well, coming home after that road trip and against perhaps the easier of the 5 opponents that you're about to face here on this road trip. We will be back tomorrow to recap whatever happens in tonight's game, bring you the stats, storylines, and significance of the win or the loss. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's podcast. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Boston Bruins so you get all the latest episodes as well as shorts and reels and TikToks. Find the podcast on socials at Locked NHL Bruins. And if Locked On Boston Bruins made your Spotify Wrapped, you can get a free month of our new Everydayer Club by tagging our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform with proof that it's in your Wrapped. We'll drop you a code, and you can be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. I appreciate anybody who took the time to listen to even one episode this year. Now, for those of you on video, I send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is NHL Game Night on the Locked On NHL feed. Don't forget to check out lockedonbruins.supercast.com for all the information you need on the Everydayer Club. Happy Tuesday, friends. Please do take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network.